I know most people know me from Call of Duty, but with the release of a Battle Royale game on consoles, I decided to give Fortnite a whirl, and boy was I not disappointed. This game is beyond amazing. Despite its cartoonish nature, it's an absolute blast to play. Now if you're new to my channel, I typically do challenge guides for Call of Duty games, or more simply put, tips and tricks. So I thought I'd do the same for Fortnite. Now obviously, some of these tips are for the newbie boobies out there that are brand new to the game, but others should benefit even the most experienced players. So I'll start with the best tip of all first, and that's looting with your pickaxe. If you weren't aware, pulling out this weapon prior to looting a massive pile of guns and items with a full inventory will only grab non-inventory items. For example, ammo and building materials. If your inventory isn't full, it'll also grab weapons, grenades, or med items until you hit the maximum of 5. So this is immensely helpful to speed the looting process up. Otherwise, you'll have to struggle to hover over which item you actually want, and this can leave you a sitting duck. So always loot with your pickaxe out if possible, but remember to make sure the coast is clear first. Next, let's talk about the color coding of weapons. The weapons in this game are all color coded to represent their strength. It's crucial to know which colors are better than others. I've constantly seen people assume that one color is better when in actuality it was worse. So there's 5 tiers in total. There's gray, which is common, green, which is uncommon, blue, which is rare, purple, which is epic, and orange, which is legendary. A lot of people seem to mix up the purple and orange, but orange definitely reigns supreme. The biggest difference in these weapons is the damage and reload times. For example, the gray common assault rifle does 32 damage and reloads in 2.3 seconds. The orange legendary, for comparison, does 39 damage and reloads in 2.1 seconds. So being able to deal 7 more damage than someone with the same weapon type is a game changer, which is why you need to be aware of the colors. Next, the blue potions. Obviously, everyone knows how powerful and beneficial these Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past potions are. They give you 50 shield per drink, and you can drink 2 for a maximum of 100 shield. The problem is, I've seen people hoard these. You should never, I repeat, never be carrying these unless you're already maxed out at 100 shield. There's absolutely no reason you should be wasting an inventory slot on one if you aren't maxed out. My motto is, the moment you pick it up, drink it. And this is certainly the case at the start of a game. You're bound to encounter someone right off the bat, which means that every little bit of shield will aid you in surviving. I've drank them even when my enemy is right next to me, just to get that 50-point advantage over them. Always drink your potion immediately upon picking them up. The next tip I wanted to talk about is building in the heat of combat. For example, if you're racing across an open field and someone starts firing at you, swap to your wall build and place them up as you run. Even though they take a few seconds to construct, while they're being built, they still absorb the bullets. If you're new to building while on the run, sometimes you may accidentally place a wall directly in front of where you're running instead of on the left, which can hinder your movement, but you'll still be protected nonetheless. Once you get the hang of it though, you can easily run and place defensive walls on every stride you take, which is extremely beneficial for on-the-run cover. Now alternatively, if you spot someone and you're already behind cover but you want to get a better angle, you can draw fire and build to distract. For example, in this clip here, I spot my enemy in the wide open. I take cover behind this tree and he opens fire on it trying to take it out and expose me. I then proceed to backpedal and build walls as I do so, and he takes the bait, spraying each new wall I construct. At this point, he has to reload, which gives me a chance to return fire. Even better though is it also causes your enemy to diversify his tactics. Instead of shooting me, he now swaps to an explosive item in an attempt to take down my walls. As he oafs around swapping weapons, I can easily dispose of him. Distraction tactics are everything in this game. Now speaking of building structures, we all know how useful building can be. Not only can you build for defensive purposes, but a majority of the time you'll be building to reach objects or to try to stay inside the circle and away from the storm. It may take some finagling, but you can often reach extremely high places by utilizing the building features. I found myself rewarded with supply drops or easy access to a hill in the safe zone simply by building up. Now here's where the tip comes in. If you're on the outside looking in and you see someone building a staircase to heaven, you can take advantage of this in 2 ways. First, the domino effect. Every structure needs a support to the ground. By shooting so far down, the rest of the structure above has nothing to attach to, and it'll destroy itself in a domino effect. This, of course, will result in the demise of anyone who is on any of the platforms that get destroyed. Now second, if you catch someone still in the act of building, you can also take advantage of this. As a structure is being built, it can still be stood on, despite not being 100% completed. So the moment you see someone walk on this still mending structure, shoot it. It'll crumble beneath their feet and they'll plummet 10 stories to their death. The next tip is one that I see overlooked all the time, and it boggles my mind. There's little ammo boxes scattered all around the world in Fortnite, and these often contain 2 sets of heavy-duty ammo, including rockets. I can't tell you how many people skip these. I myself am always struggling to find sufficient ammo for my assault rifles. Yet, by searching so many of these ammo boxes, I'm usually rewarded pretty nicely. Always look for and utilize these tiny green ammo boxes, as most people just walk right by them. The next thing I wanted to talk about is more or less just a heads up, not actually a tip, and that's object obstruction. As you should be aware, everything can be destroyed in this game, from trees to cars to houses. The environment is one big destructible object. Unfortunately, this can really muck up your shot. For example, look at this clip here. I turn myself into a peeping Tom, peer through this window, and catch someone camping their dick off. Now as you can see, there are mechanics in the game that alert you when you're about to shoot an object. You can see this little red circle in my line of sight, which tells me that my shot will hit that circle instead of what I'm trying to aim at. Unfortunately, it's not always accurate. As you can see, there's no red circle here and I'm aiming directly at her head. I fire a few shots, but none of them connect on my target. Instead, they do damage to all the surrounding objects. So unless you have an absolutely 100% clear line of sight on your enemy, don't assume it's an easy shot even if they aren't moving. Next up are traps. I've rarely seen people use these, but I have a hunch it's because most people don't know how. That or because some of them are obnoxiously loud. The ceiling traps can be heard from a mile away with an electrical buzzing noise, but others are not as loud, thankfully. So once you've picked up a trap, you can only place it on its intended location. To do this, on the PlayStation 4 at least, you hit the circle button to access your building options, then you have to be near an area where the trap can be placed. For instance, this trap says wall and then in parentheses it says fence. That means that whenever I'm near a fence, I can hit circle and then square to access it, and then you hit R2 to place it. The effect radius of the traps, in particular the wall ones, are massive. So watch here as an enemy and I both spot each other. I'm severely damaged with only 15 health left, and I only have a shotgun in my arsenal. I do, however, possess a fence trap. I know my enemy spotted me and he's likely going to be trailing me, and just my luck, fences are abundant in this particular area. So as I make my escape, I pick a fence, swap to my trap, and I place it. I then continue on and, as anticipated, catch him trailing me out of the corner of my eye. He walks right into the blast zone of the trap and instantly gets killed. It's all about situational awareness. Speaking of which, let's cover a few strategies in regard to that. First up, letting your enemy do the looting for you. At the start of a match, you always need to assume at least one enemy is in a house looting at all times. If you happen to spot such an enemy entering into a house, or maybe see him through a window, then pick some cover and let him do the looting for you. There's no need to risk bull charging into a house and letting the enemy have the better positioning. Instead, let the enemy loot for you and then wait for him to emerge. If he just looted an entire area carefree, let him drink deeply the illusion of his safety. He'll be caught unaware and you can safely pick him off from a distance and then reap all the rewards. Second, when you enter the safe zone in the middle to the end of the game, you always need to assume an enemy is either looking through the storm and awaiting your arrival for an easy kill, or that he's already engaged in a fight in front of him. I've often emerged from the storm into the safe zone to find easy kills from distracted enemies. You can also use the storm and safe zone to your advantage by reversing the roles. If you're at the edge of the white circle, simply watch for enemies to trickle in. More often than not, they'll come blindly rushing through the storm, completely oblivious to your presence. This makes them an easy target and helps boost your loot in the process. Next, when it comes to gunfights, you want to make sure you always have the high ground. Not only does it make you harder for a grounded enemy to shoot at, but it also makes scoring a headshot easier for you as well. You can incorporate the building system into this strategy too. The easiest structure you can build is a small house-like building. 4 base walls at the bottom, then a staircase up, then 4 more walls around that, and 1 more set of stairs. This makeshift tower not only gets you the high ground, but also allows you ideal protection from advancing enemies. You can kneel and accurately shoot at anyone attempting to challenge you. If time doesn't allow you to construct such a building, simply putting 2 walls in front followed by a staircase will also suffice, although not as well. Now, since I mentioned kneeling, you should be aware that crouching and remaining stationary improves your accuracy, as opposed to shooting while on the move or just standing still. That makes this makeshift structure even more beneficial, as you can easily crouch at the top and fire some accurate shots downhill. One other tip I have is to not ignore the pistols. In particular, when a game first begins, I often see people either overlook the pistols altogether or attempt to use something else instead, such as the SMGs. At the time of this video, the SMGs in this game are nothing short of wank on the cob. They can safely be ignored at all times until they receive a significant buff. They're simply outclassed by every weapon in the game. The pistols, on the other hand, are very powerful, and you'd be surprised at how quickly they can disperse of an enemy. Try them out the next time you encounter one, and you'll see what I mean. Now, when it comes to supply drops, you need to always assume an enemy is watching it like a hawk. I'd say half the time you find a supply drop that's already on the ground, someone's camping it and just waiting for you to make a fool of yourself. If you see the supply drop land yourself, the coast may be clear. But if it's just sitting there, your best bet is to proceed cautiously, or just attempt to build a barrier around it before you open it. And speaking of them landing, the supply drops tend to get stuck a lot in this game. People always overlook this fact as well. So keep your eyes peeled for supply drops stuck in trees, for example. Simply destroying the object that it's stuck on will reward you with the drop. Now lastly, let's talk about grenades, grenade launchers, and rocket launchers. It's always ideal to have at least one of these 3 items with you at all times. All 3 of these can serve multiple purposes in your rise of power. First, they can take down structures with relative ease. Although in a recent update, the grenades and rocket launchers were nerfed a bit, they're still your best bet in destroying objects. Second, they're extremely powerful. If I have grenades, I utilize them as much as possible. One of my favorite things to do when I'm being chased is to stop, swap to my grenades, and chuck 2 or 3 of them behind me. More often than not, it results in a kill. Lastly, they serve as incredible distractions and help flush an enemy out. The ideal scenario is to shoot your grenade launcher, throw a grenade, or shoot a rocket, and then instantly swap to another weapon. All 3 of these options have a delay. The grenade doesn't blow up instantly, nor does the grenade launcher, and the rocket has a slow travel time. So during these delays, your enemy has to scamper frantically to get out of the way, which means his guard is down. When you instantly swap to another weapon, you can pick them off with less of a fight. And that, as they say, is that. I've watched several tips and tricks videos on Fortnite, and most of them are extremely vague, such as open the golden treasure chests. Hopefully some of my tips were a bit more beneficial than that. I tried to show examples of what I was discussing where I could, which I find is always more helpful when you can actually see it in action. I've got a few more Fortnite videos up my sleeve, including some elaborate tactics that should help you acquire some victories.